We've been showing you now some illustrations of what we talked about before, but there's one more illustration that's extremely important. Okay, we've talked about notes, the sizes, how fast they go, that they are actually on lines. One thing we should have said also, when they're on lines, that doesn't mean that they're only on the lines, they're also on the spaces between the lines. Here can be a note. Here can be another note that's on a space between the lines, and here can be a note on a line. So the lines are like this, but there are spaces between each line, and notes go in the spaces as well as on the lines. That wasn't clear before, but we can make that clear now. Now, the point is, we were making before, how do you know what note goes on there? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and so forth. Which note goes on which lines, and how you can tell? Well, there has to be a focal point, something that shows you exactly where one note is so that you can then compare and put all the rest where they belong. These things are called clefs. C-L-E-F, clef. There is one clef for the lines on top for the high notes, and there is one clef for the lines on the bottom for the low notes. Each clef has one place where it shows where one note is, and then you can find all the others by counting up and down. Okay, so here's the clefs, and I'll show you what they are. First of all, on the top, it's called a G clef. Why is it called a G clef? Because right where that little figure circles around a line, that means that's the note G. Now, there's an F clef, which also shows you by the way it's structured, right where the note F is. That way you know exactly where a note is on the upper and the lower sections of notes, and that way you can tell where all the rest of the notes are if you simply count up and down. For example, if you have G, then you go to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Or if you go down, you go the opposite way, and so forth. And with the F clef, you go to, starting on F, you go F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and so forth. So each of these is an identification marker, a place where you can find out what the note is and then compare to find all the others. Now I will show you, first of all, in the two sections you have 10 lines. 10 lines, 5 above and 5 below. But on each of those lines you have a clef. There is the G clef. And right here, where it hits that line, that shows you where the note G is. Then the next note is in that space above it, and the next note is on that line, the next note is on that space. You just have to count the notes up. Now, on the bottom low notes, that is called the F clef. Notice where it hits right here. That's where the F is, right on that line. So the next note in this space is G. The next note is A, B, and then C in the middle. So as you can see, each of these has a place where you could tell which note falls on the lines and where they are and how they look. Therefore, when you put them together, you will find the notes on these lines and the spaces, with the clef showing you where each one starts, and then you have all of them together, which is illustrated in this illustration right here. You see all the clefs? And those are all the notes in lines and spaces that go up. And middle C is right there, right in between the two clefs. That's why if you play middle C on the piano, you are finding a place right between the upper and lower. That's the starting point for everything on the piano and many other instruments as well. These illustrations help us to understand how important it is in visualized music to have these markers of all types. Otherwise, no instrumentalist can play any of their instruments without this visualized presence.